theyeshiva.net.
Everybody understands the chiluk of akudim, nekudim, brudim, the difference of the achdus and tikkun and the achdus and akudim, the difference.
What do you mean the top level again?
Akudim, the 10 lights are bound up in one vessel, so you don't even have 10 different expressions. You only have one expression because what's nirgish, that's pre-tohu, because what's nirgish is the ein sof, and therefore you don't have 10 different expressions. You have one expression. That's akudim. Then you have tohu, which is what? Which is nikudim. We have 10 lights and 10 vessels, but each one is completely self-contained. As he puts it, that in tohu, it's nikudos zu tacha zu. Every sphere, every midah is completely independent. There's no hiskalulus. Everything has its own self-contained essence. And this is basically where animals come from. Every animal has its own distinctive nature, and it's non-negotiable. There's no compromise. It is what it is, and it is what it is in the most ferocious, powerful way. There's no hiskalulus because animals are rooted in tohu, and they cannot tolerate someone that is not their min often. And then you have the third, which is tikkun. What's tikkun? Eser oiris, also eser kalim, but parts of structures, organisms, like a body, limbs and organs that work always with each other. They're tied into each other. They're interconnected. They borrow from each other. They lend to each other, and so on and so forth. And that's the third process. So tikkun and akudim have a common denominator in the sense that what? That there is hiskalulus, is integration, but you can't compare. Over there, the integration is not because the midas are weak. Fakert, they're the strongest ever. In tikkun, the reason this integration is because everybody realizes his limitation. Everybody has bittul. Everybody has chalishus. Moyach shalt lalav. There's so much going on. There's so much diversity. And because the diversity forces you to put things in perspective. I can't say my way or the highway because there's no one highway. There's hundreds of highways. There's hundreds of highways. That's chalishus aguf argashas atzmusi means the less self-consciousness. In tikkun there's less self-consciousness. Yeah. But chalishus is not a bad thing. Chalishus just means you're of course it has a chisam, but it also has a tremendous maila. You're not operating in a primal, infinite, volatile state. There's so many different kavim, there's so much diversity. That's what partsufim means. Everything is connected with something else. It's like the World Wide Web. There's no one website. You understand? There's endless diversity, and the endless diversity ultimately dilutes energy because we realize that this is all about cooperation. It's about cooperation. You can't function without. There's nothing you can achieve without cooperation. Could you build something without cooperation? Cooperation, right? You need your co's in order to operate. Everybody has their mission, their shlichus, b'tzelem elokim asas adam zachar and nekeva. In akudim is achdas not because there's so much diversity, because there's absolutely no diversity, because it's all the ein sof. It's the opposite. So tohu captures the ein sof quality of akudim. And tikkun captures the hiskalulus quality of akudim, which essentially, the hiskalulus means the integration, yeah. Because in tohu, it captures the ein sof, but it captures the ein sof in terms of ego. In other words, that I am I, and that's it. Those are the three states that we addressed. Chalishus means diluted. You know, when you pour the water into the wine, right? What's called mizug, you dilute the intensity of the wine.
Got it.
Compromise, the idea of pshara, in the positive sense, compromise. Seeing different perspectives. Vahiken nagen hamenagen, vatiyal of ruach Hashem. Yeah. What?
Compromise and negotiation is the same thing?
In our context, negotiation means that I respect that there's another view. There's two different views, and I need arbitration, an element of arbitration. In tohu that doesn't exist. The mile in tohu is intensity, primal. Rav Tfu is b'koyach shar, the koyach of a behemoth, the koyach of a chaya. That single-minded focusedness. I have a friend His name is Bernard, Kivi Bernard. So he wrote a book called Leopardology. He grew up in Africa. Leopardology is basically, he uses a leopard to define and explain how you should run your business. Basically, you should learn from a leopard pursuing its prey. So he goes through all the characteristics of how the leopard does it. That's how you should run your business. The biggest idea over there is the single-minded focusedness. In the leopard, there's no distractions. The leopard doesn't say, "Oh, I just got a text. Let me go check the text. Let me check my emails." When that leopard is pursuing its prey, if you ever see these documentaries, you ever go to these jungles, it's incredible. That single-minded focusedness, the primal instinct to survive and live and feed her cubs is just so powerful. It's so infinite. Like I discussed last, the email that I got from that person who becomes alive in the jungle, become alive from that experience. Okay, we gave two metaphors to apply it to life. One day we discussed the metaphor of marriage, right? There's the notion of marriage that we get along because we're exactly the same. But what happens is when differences emerge, there's no basis for the marriage anymore because we're not the same anymore. As long as we can keep up the idea that we're identical, wonderful. But when you learn that you're not identical, what happens then? And this is where you have to go from a world of tohu, which is vayimlach vayamas, either I'm the king or you're the king, but two kings can't coexist in one house, to the world of tikkun, which is Adam, not Behema, which is B'Tselem Elikim, Asas Ha'adam. And we discussed the Ramban, who says that marriage is unique to the human race, because Adam and Chava were really one, and then they were separated. So that's why even when we come together with our spouses, it doesn't have to feel superimposed, like it's a new reality. Very often people say, marriage is just superimposed. It's not natural. Naturally, I am I, and you are you. And that's what Toyu says. Toyu says, just move into another house. Tikkun says, the ultimate I can only be realized when the I is in a relationship with you, because Adam, Begematria Ma, there's a memory of Adam and Chava who are really one, which is the memory of Akudim that informs Brudim. It's the memory of Ein Sof that inspires the cooperation that is in the world of Tikkun. There's some sense of attachment that still exists, and therefore I connect to you. And then we discussed also the concept of different identities in terms of politics, how you create the balance of Yachid and Sibur in terms of governments, in terms of empires, in terms of regimes, and also in terms of the Jewish people. Let's now go weiter inside. Samach Vav Amud Beis, the second paragraph, page 131. V'hinei im kol zeh yuvan. With all of this, we'll be able to understand Mashamar Razal, what Chazal say in Maseches Brachos, Birchas Hazon Tikkun Moshe. Moshe instituted the first bracha of Birchas Hamazon. Yehoshua instituted the second bracha, which is Birchas Haaretz. David and Shlomo instituted the third bracha, which is Bnei Yerushalayim, which was the theme that the Alter Rebbe discussed in the beginning, the Balatanya discussed in the beginning of the Maimer, that the Gemara goes through the various brachas and who instituted these brachas. So Moshe does Hazanas HaOlam Kula B'Tuvay, and Yehoshua does Birchas Haaretz. Now, what's the Havana in here? The Gemara says there that the first three brachas of Birchas Hamazon are min HaTorah. The third, HaTorah HaMeitiv, is midrabanan because it was instituted after the Harugei Beiter, which means decades after Churban Bayesheni. So, of course, it's a mitzvah d'Rabbanan. Can't be a mitzvah min HaTorah. So the Rashba, there in Gemara, Chidusha Rashba, asks a question. This is really the question he's trying to answer. If Yehoshua instituted, or David or Shlomo instituted, you can't call it min HaTorah. A mitzvah min HaTorah is only a mitzvah that was given l'Moshe Misina. There's no such a thing, David and Shlomo make a mitzvah min HaTorah. We have in the time of David and Shlomo the dinim of Muktzah. When David died on Shabbos, Shlomo didn't know how he could carry in his body Abba, Haklovim re'evim abba mutal b'cham. What am I supposed to do? But you're not going to call muktzah min haTorah. Muktzah was created by Sanhedrin, by Bezdin. It's called Torah Shabbal Peh, not Torah Shabiksav. Min haTorah, there's only authority for min haTorah is God. And God conveyed it through Moshe. And haTorah azois loitei muchlefes. There's not going to be any new mitzvahs min haTorah that somebody comes up with. There's no hefkedis in Judaism. Despite what many Orthodox Jews think, because they don't realize that there's an intricate system. There's no hefkedis. So the Rashba asks an Eisen or Shaila. So how could Birchas Hamazon be min haTorah? Yeshua can't make a mitzvah min haTorah. David and Shlomo can't make a mitzvah min haTorah. Either it was given to Moshe. It could be halacha l'Moshe Sinai, which means it's not written in the Chumash. So the Rashba says, what's pshat? Of course, the three brachas of min haTorah, that means it had to be from Moshe Rabbeinu. It's pshat, however, that they have the core bracha and then you have the nusach of the bracha. Yeshua developed the nusach based on Eretz Yisrael. David and Shlomo developed the nusach based on Yerushalayim, because they're the first ones who conquered. David is the one who settled Yerushalayim. Yeshua took them into Eretz Yisrael. So Yeshua could already speak about the fact, Shein chalta lava yiseinu eretz chem de toiv orechava. Moshe can't say those words. He's still in the desert. He never goes into Eretz Yisrael. But the concept of the three brachas belong to Moshe Rabbeinu. That's where the Gemara says in brachas v'chalta v'savata v'rachta. So Hashem alekecha l'oretz ha'toiva. So the Gemara says as he brought ubeirachtas Hashem alekecha zu birchas hazon al ha'aretz zu birchas ha'aretz ha'toiva ha'hara toiva zev alavon and zev beis hamikdash. This was written by Moshe. Parshas Eikev is not Yeshua. Parshas Eikev is Moshe. But then it's an interesting thing. If that's the case, that means that the nusach changes over the generations. Why does the nusach change? It's adopted according to that door. So that's why we say Birchas Hazon was nistaken through Moshe Rabbeinu. But now the interesting shaila is what he brought up, that in the first bracha you only speak about Hazanas HaKol. In the second bracha you speak about two things. You speak about Ala Aretz Va'al Hamazon. So the Gemara says that the reason you end up with two things, even though every bracha is supposed to be at one item, because it's Eretz the Mafka Mazon. It's the land that produces Mazon. Ala Aretz Va'al Hamazon is not two things. Ala Aretz, the Mafka Mazon. The Eretz that's Mafik Mazon. So he asked, why do you even mention Mazon? So he says, for this you have to understand what's the concept that the three generations made the three different brachas, and why by Birchas Hazon you don't mention anything else of the other brachas, and yet in Birchas Haaretz you mention Mazon, and you finish off Al Haaretz Vala Mazon. So now he went into the whole discussion of Achila, Kavanas Achila, Kol Moitzapi Hashem Yechia Adam. For this he went into Toyu and Tikkun. From this he went in from Toyu to Tikkun, Lechem in Haaretz to Lechem in Hashemayim to the man. From this he went into Akudim. And Moshe not having the ability to speak. Now he says, according to this, Yuvam Hashem Razal Birchas Hazon Tikkun Moshe. Keep a Birchas Hazon Nemer Hakol B'Loshen Nister. In Birchas Hazon everything is in Loshen Nister, meaning concealed language, meaning we speak in third person. Hu Noisen Lechem L'chal Basar. In the second bracha we speak in second person. Take a look. Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam. Hazanes ha'olam kulu b'tovei b'chem b'chem b'chem. Who noisen? I'm not talking to him. I don't say ata noisen lechem l'chamazon. He gives bas. Uvetuvoi, not uvetuvcha. Uvetuvoi in his goodness. Loichaselon v'yechselon v'azlon v'ad. Ki hu kells on him a farnes l'kel meitiv l'kel meichin mazon. Baruch Atah Hashem hazanes ha'kol. He feeds everybody. Suddenly in the second bracha, noida l'cha Hashem Elokeinu. You could say noida loy al sheinchal tolav yiseno, not al sheinchil. She'etzei nu, not shehoitzi. From Lashon Nister, which means third person, like somebody who's not here. It's called Lashon Nister. You speak about them like they're not here. When if you're here, I don't say who, I say ata, right? Guf shlishi, yeah. There's a change here. What's the Havana? V'hainu mipnei ki Moshe b'bchinas shei ma ka Moshe be'etzem. Moshe represents shei ma, v'nachnu ma, the name mem hey, with a shin in the middle, but the way it is in its core, she'ein b'bchinas gilui. And when something is in its core, it's not revealed. V'ha'oras ha'moichin b'midas. He transcends the way the moichin inspires emotion. Rak b'bchinas habitl. In Moshe's state, it's shema at its core. The pnimiyus of it, not the chitzonis. As you recall, everything has two states. The way I am vis-a-vis me, and the way I am vis-a-vis you. when something becomes a source of inspiration, I'm tuning in only to its external layer, meaning the way it informs me, the way it inspires me, the way it invigorates me, what it means for me. Torah is basically the blueprint of Hashem for midos and for the world. Kosher, pasul, zakai, chayev, mutter, asur, tahir, tameh, all these terms. So Moshe says, kvad pek, kvad lashon anoichi. L'chach nemer hakar lashon nister. So everything is lashon nister, concealed. Over birchas haaretz nemer lashon noichach, noida l'cha. V'hainu, but you're talking about two different foods. Birchas haaretz kaya lechem min haaretz. The second bracha is talking about the bread that comes from the earth. Tahainu, lechem, the bread, shayidei birurei man umad. This is the bread which emerges through birurei man umad. Man is the acronym Mayin Nukvin. Mad is Mayin Duchrin. Feminine waters, masculine waters, which is basically symbolic in Sifrei Hanister of the hisayrus that comes from the female, the inspiration that comes from below, versus the arousal, the flow that comes from above. Either it starts with man, and man is ma'orer mad, or mad is ma'orer man. Like in a relationship, the trigger can happen one way or another way. Ish mazriat chila, isha mazras chila, as the Gemara says in Nida. So in Lechem in Haaretz, what is it? We eat food that is down here. This food really represents sparks of toyu that fell down and decomposed and broke. And when I eat this food and I incorporate this food with the proper mindfulness, so what happens? I trigger the source of the food, which is the original lights of toyu, and tikkun becomes infused with the koyach of toyu. V'chalta v'savato v'irachta es Hashem alekecha. Even the Adam ha'elyon becomes kevayachal, more invigorated from the oir of toyu, from the mad, the flow that comes as a result of the man, as a result of the avodah down here below in the food. It's almost like the food is rooted in a very deep place, and by triggering it here, I trigger it on all its levels, and when I incorporate it, I incorporated the oirus of toyu into my life, which is why we need the food, because it gives us something very special. It gives us contact with that original, primal, intense, infinite world that completely got broken and decomposed, and therefore it's only we who can ultimately harness it, train it, direct it, structure it. But in that structure, we get a gift of something that is beyond structure.
This is what we said a few days ago in terms of this process. Just to understand it technically. So like you say, when you eat with mindfulness, so you're eating something which has its sparks in tohu, so that somehow triggers toho to
in its source.
In its source to illuminate into tikkun, like it's a little bit.
No, in other words, what happens now is the sparks. But tikkun can elevate the sparks that fell, right? Because tikkun still has that connection. Tikkun did not have a shvira, so by tikkun elevating it, it goes back to its natural habitat. Its natural habitat is tohu. You know what I mean? Yeah. I may have. You may be a trainer, and you have a kid who is a genius, but is completely broken, has talent, has creativity, but is an ultimate rebel and destroys everything, right? If I could bring that child back to his true self, yeah, he won't be indebted to me and follow my footsteps. He will follow his footsteps. He will follow his footsteps. You know, there are those who train lions as babies, as cubs, but then they bring them to the jungle. The lion doesn't remain indebted to the human lifestyle because it grew up by me. Ultimately, the lion is a lion, you know, Lion King. So once I reveal in these sparks who they really are, they're like, goodbye, thank you for your help. So I was first a mashpia, but then I become a makabel. I become enriched by that which is now part of my bloodstream, so to speak.
So when tikkun brings the sparks back to toe, so to speak, tikkun itself gets
it's part of its persona. Tikkun has to also learn to assimilate. Basically, what I'm giving the oirus of toyu is kalim. At this point, we're holding toyu and tikkun. When I bring back the oidas to their source, I'm basically creating kalim for them. So I have to expand my own kalim. That's why whenever you elevate toyu, it's always by expanding your kalim. Because if you remain stuck in your kalim, you'll never elevate toyu. Because you can't deal with those oidas. It always comes from expanding kalim. We go back to what Yitzchak told Esav. He says, bring me food and I'll bless you. Why did he have to bring him food? Because Yitzchak had to get in touch with the component of Esav in himself. And Esav was a classic example of toyu. Classic. And when Rivka repeats it to Yaakov, you remember, Torah Parshas told us, Re'ei reach b'ni, she adds a few words that her husband never said. Very spiritual words. Va'avarechecha lifnei Hashem. So the Balatanya says lifnei means higher, before Yudke Vavke. You are Yudke Vavke, you're Tikkun. You're structure, Yaakov. You're a good guy. Va'avarechecha lifnei Hashem. Because to get into you, I have to go to a place that's deeper than Yudke Vavke in me. And then I could find your Kedusha, your Oir. And I'm going to bring you to that place of Lifnei Hashem. Like we say Yom Kippur. Lifnei Hashem titaru. Real Tara comes from going Lifnei Yudke Vavke. Before Yudke Vavke, in other words, going into the place of the source of brokenness, which is Tayu. And then Yitzchak can elevate Esav. And Rivka says, I got to give that gift to you. You need that gift now because you're the one who's going to be taking these brachas.
So the discipline,
1 second, yeah?
discipline of eating with mindfulness is the Hachavas HaKeil, is making the...
Of course.
That
is part of opening the kalim, yeah? Expanding the kalim. So it could be oiris of toyu and kalim of tikkun.
What would have happened if I saw it? What would have happened?
Well, what he says over there in the Maimer is that one of two things would have happened. Either it would have been nuclear energy and Esav would have expired, or Esav would have just used that and manipulated that further. Like I gave the example, I think then, if you give a drug addict money to go to rehabilitation, what happens to that money? He's not going for rehabilitation, he's going to buy more drugs. He's not in the position where he could rehabilitate himself. It has to come from a force outside of himself, because the shvira was very big, the shvira was very deep. But the whole struggle between Yaakov and Esav and their ultimate reconciliation on some level is the encounter of Toyu and Tikkun. So whenever I have a relationship with Toyu, it's always an opportunity. It's always a challenge, but it's always an opportunity to get in touch with a primal level of the self that is not easy to deal with. And the reason it's not easy to deal with is because it's volatile. It's volatile. And therefore we want to run away from it. And we wish and we pray that it would have been less volatile, it would have been more cohesive, more structured, more organized. And yet, in there lay tremendous opportunity, tremendous growth. So, Lechem min ha'aretz is the process of the food that comes down here below, and we deal with it. And he says, Shehu ha'kel b'b'chinas mamalik halalman. Which all of this, all relates to that divine energy which we call mamalik halalman. It fills the worlds. V'lechein nemar b'berches ha'aretz al ha'koil anu moidim lach. The term haida'ah is the frequent, it's the thematic word. You see, the brachas of Chazal are more precise than anybody would imagine. How do you figure out the message? You have to see the key words that they inserted into the bracha. It's like, codes. It's
Cryptic?
It's not cryptic. It's the simonim they gave that this is the message. The second bracha you see, there's a lot of, it starts off right away. Noida lecha Hashem Elokeinu, shenchat l'aveiseinu. Va'ala koil Hashem Elokeinu, anachnu moidim lach, umevarchem Isach Yisbarach Shemcha. What's the moidim, he says? Lashon haida'ah. Moidim, we say, means thank you. Noida, like todah, todah rabah. Ala koil Hashem Elokeinu, anachnu moidim, thank you. Moidim anachnu lach, in davening, we thank you. Noida lechon esaperte l'secha. But there's another meaning to Moida, which is Lashon Haida'ah. Haida'ah means submission. For example, Einyan Haida'hu al derech Moidim Chachamim l'Reb Meir. In Gemara you'll have Moidim Chachamim l'Reb Meir. Does it mean Chachamim thanked Reb Meir? No. What does it mean? They consented, they submitted, they acquiesced is the word. Wie sagt man acquiesced auf Yiddish?
Gave in.
They gave in, that's Yiddish? Okay. Ibigeben, no, that's another word. Huh? Moidim chachamim, I argued with you, and then I say, you know what, you're right, I'm sorry. That's moida. Even moida b'miktzas. What's moida b'miktzas? Same idea. Moida b'miktzas means, I say, I don't owe you $1,000, but I'm moida, I confess that I owe you $500. Essentially, confession is also a form of submission. He was moida. What's that he was moida? Moida means it's a form of surrender. I'm confessing I made a mistake, I borrowed money from you, I owe you one. Here too, I was arguing with you, but really, you're right. I'm mevatel my das to your das.
Not even the word exists, the whole idea doesn't exist.
In Yiddish. The hainu beis hacholkim zeim zeh. When you have two people arguing, she'echad mevatel daite neged chavere, nikra b'chinas haydam. When one surrenders his das to his friend and he says, you know what? I'm mistaken, you're right, that's called moidim chachamim. They were moided to the view of Reb Meir. U'kamoikein moidim anachnu lach. That's how you have to understand when we say moidim. It doesn't only mean thanks, it means something much deeper. The Balatanya here is now going to teach a fascinating idea. There's basically an argument going on between God and the world constantly. And the argument never stops. It's an ongoing debate like two chavrusas and beis medrash hollering at each other. And it doesn't stop, it's two perceptions. And at some point, once in davening and once in benching, we say, Moidim anachnu lach. Like Moidim chacham l'Reb Meir. It's much deeper than a thank you. It's an idea of two people arguing, and one is mavatal daitai, and if there's no argument, there's no point to say Moidim. What's this argument? Ki hine yesh beis deis. There are beis deis. Beis deis means there are two types of perceptions in life. K'may shekasav, of course he has a pasuk for it. Ki keil deis Hashem, v'loi niskenu alilois. I believe this is in the Shira of Chana. In the Shira of Chana, after she has a baby, and Shmuel. So we have the Shira of Chana, with of Torah of Rosh Hashanah, the beginning of Shmuel. So what do we have there? Chana says, Ki keil deis Hashem v'loi niskenu alilois. What's that keil deis Hashem? Literally we teach, keil deis Hashem is, God is a God who contains all of the deis, all of the opinions. But he says here, no, Keil Deis Hashem means there's two deis in how you define Hashem. Keil Deis Hashem, Kivayachal in Hashem, there's two different perceptions. There's two types of perceptions in how you define God. One is the divine perception of the divine, and one is the human perception of the divine. Yesh beis deis, and this is a machlokes. What are these deis? Yesh das shemel mata lamayla, and there's going to be a das malmayla lamata. What we would call in English from outside in or inside out. There's one das that's malmata lamayla. Malmata lamayla means I'm down below and I'm trying to look up. Malmata lamayla is one das. There's another das that's malmayla lamata. What's the difference? So he starts off with the lower das. Das malmata lamayla. Hagashmi is hu yesh, v'haruchni is hu ayin. What is yesh? What is existence? The physical, gashmi, is material. That's reality. Ruchnius is called ayin. Why is it called ayin? We're not talking about a person who doesn't accept the concept of ruchnius. No, he does. But he calls it ayin. Why? It's not something that's comprehensible. I can't wrap myself around it. I can hold a cup. I can touch my fingers. I can touch you. I can feel that basketball and I can touch the slice of pizza or the tissue box. I could see the blade of grass. I could see the cat or the snow and make a snowball or a snowman. That's real. Yesh, it's real. Yesh here means it's something. It exists. Yesh, it's here. Or versus Ruchnius. Ruchnius is ayin. It's ethereal. It's nebulous. It's the stuff of not einay musik. It's not comprehensible to me. Because it's not comprehensible to me, I can't relate to it with the same realness as I relate to the Gashmis. So when I start talking about the beyond, the divine, I right away go into the word of ayin. And that's what we mean when we say the world was created yesh me'ayin. Something from nothing, in the famous expression of the Ramban and most Sifrei Chira of Judaism. Yesh me'ayin, God is called ayin? What's his yesh mi'ayin? Well, he's nothing. He's chopped liver. You're the yesh and he's the ayin. Maybe you're the ayin. No, it means something very powerful, and that is ultimately, even if I'm convinced and even if I could prove that this yesh has a source, but that source I'm not comfortable with. I can't put my finger on it. I call it ayin, einoi musig. It's a lasach nish verstehen. It's incomprehensible. And something that's incomprehensible, we call ayin. For me, it's nothing. What am I supposed to do with it? What am I supposed to do with this information? I just let it go. I leave it alone. I call it ayin. This I call yesh. Gashmis I call yesh. Ayin einoi musig. Milmayla lamata. There's another perception. Which perception? Milmayla lamata. From inside out. Hu behepech. It's exact opposite. Here you have the opposite words. Haruchni is hu ayesh amiti. Ruchni is esh the yesh. It's the only yesh. Why? Why? Or the only? Why amiti? Why don't you say Ruchni is also a yesh? No, it's the yesh amiti. Mitzat shu ikir amahav v'amachaya. Because that's what gives life. That's the source of the geshem. That's really what it is. Kumaysha kasov. Weiter with his psukim. This is the pasuk that's brought in Mesaif Masechta Uktzin. Kol osid kol tzadik v'tzadik lahanchil shai oilemis shenemar lahanchil oyavai yesh. So he teaches what's prat lahanchil oyavai yesh, that they'll be able to perceive the perception that the real yesh is the ruchni. V'hagashmi is botel ayin betachlis. In this paradigm, the gashmi is called the ayin and the ruchni is called the yesh. Why? Not because the gashmi doesn't exist, because the gashmi is botel ayin betachlis. That's not there's no real substance there. Its entire identity is merely a manifestation of divine energy. It's the energy that is the core of existence. So it's two different paradigms. It depends what you're seeing and how you're seeing it.
Not just the energy is the core of existence, that we cannot even be masik the gashmi. The idea that the gashmi should now take on the role of being
Right.
Eno Musug. That the gashmi should now be Eno Musug. That's a real leap. You just want to say you reach a level. I mean, when
Right.
the tzaddik reaches the end, he's going to get to Rishkoyach. He gets the idea of the yesh. But now we won't even be able to masik what the gashmi.
He's struggling to understand how the gashmi became a yesh.
Both exists in both ways. Just what you are.
what you're observing from your perspective. Now, so we have this even within people, within even the lower perception. This is in the Lashon of the Balatanya. It's called Das Tachten, Das Elyon. The lower perception, the higher perception. Both perceptions. Now, Chana says, Ki Keil Deis Hashem. Don't think the first perception is false. It's not a lie. God allowed this perception. When we come into this world, the Gashmi is the Yesh and the Ruchni is the Ayin. It's supposed to be that way. Our instinctive experience of life is the material exists. The spiritual at best is some type of intangible reality that I could relate to or I can't relate to. You say you have spiritual souls, right? What do you mean spiritual souls? Like they relate to spirituality as though it was real. Other people, like, I don't know what you're talking about. But let's understand this even with people, just to give a dogma that's closer to our lives in this difference. Your baby is playing in the house, a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old. You have a check that somebody gave you to invest in your company. The check is $2.5 million that you could cash in Chase Manhattan. But there's also a fire engine truck or an ice cream. And you'll offer the baby these two entities. And if you can ask the baby what is significant in life and what is insignificant in life. And obviously the check he'll throw in the garbage. And the ice cream he'll embrace with great enthusiasm, or the fire engine truck, and one he would choose over the other, even though one is worth 55 cents, or with taxes 72 cents, and one is $2.5 million, or whatever the check is. If you want to up it to $1 billion, I know people have your big hasagas. See how late you go to work, you must have big hasagas, so you can up it maybe more. But whatever you want to give the check. Suddenly, when you get older, if I come to my 35-year-old friend and I say, here's a fire engine truck or the check, what happens? Suddenly priorities change. In one world, this was insignificant. This is significant. And in another world, something else becomes significant. But take it a step further. In one world, what is tangible physically is the most important reality. What about somebody who has antennas, great intellectuals, great minds, great souls, great emotion? Ideas for them become much more real than tangible realities, and sometimes it drives them crazy. You can even hear in conversations of people by bar mitzvahs, right? You ever get bored at these some conversations? What for one person is the most important, exciting conversation, for another person they're ready to commit suicide. Right? You know what I mean? Why? Because what for him is yesh, is for him, I don't find myself there, I don't see existence there, it's completely meaningless. And so it goes from state to state to state. And then you'll have a person, a real ish muskalas, a real person of seichel, where b'chlal, the physical reality of something is completely subservient to the idea of it. As Plato explained at length, the idea of the tree is much more important than the tree. It's called tree-ness. Tree-ness, the concept is always more important than the tangible. And so it goes from state to state, as the Baal Shem Tov said, for every question he could give an answer, but for every answer he can give a question. Because what is in one state yesh is in another state ayin, what is in one state ayin is in another state yesh. And so it develops. And then sometimes you're 80 years old and you look back at your life and everything you invested so much in, and it was priorities and it was everything, it's ayin. Ayin doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Ayin means it doesn't have the definition of real reality. So now the question is, what do we call reality? Here are the two perceptions. You can have a Jew. He believes in God. Not only believes in blind faith, is even convinced. We're not talking about a simpleton who doesn't think. We're talking about a developed person. And is completely l'cha'ira in a life of ruchnius. But ultimately, lamata yesh or lamayla ayin. What's yesh, what's reality is the physical. All ruchnius is called ayin. Why? Einay musik. It's completely intangible. Milmail, it's the other way around. The real yesh is garder ruchni. That's the yesh. The gashmi is simply the final product and manifestation. And that's called the ayin. Why is it called ayin? Because it has such little significance legabe the ruchni. You even have this, for example, in the world of science. We spoke about it. You know, you have a table. It's a real yesh, right? When you go into the inner world of the table and you see it's pretty shvache yesh, basically, the atomic structure of it is far more real than what looks like solid. In fact, they'll always tell you it's not even solid. Nothing is solid. It's basically millions, billions, trillions, sextillions of atoms that are swerving around in perfect harmony and symmetry. The question is, so why don't I see it? Why don't I see it? And the answer is, because you're dealing with such tiny, tiny particles. Even the word tiny doesn't describe how tiny it is. And the distance between them is so tiny that our eyes can't make peace with that reality. And our eyes put it together and make it one cholent, and it becomes a table. There's no such a thing as a table. But my eyes can't deal with reality. So what do my eyes do? My eyes turn it into a table. And that's why in physics they love saying today, there's no such a thing, your house exists. You don't have a house. When you're living in your house exists. The moment you and your wife leave your house to go to Miami for a week, the house does not exist. Now it used to be that this was crazy language of Mishugoyim. You left to Miami, the house doesn't exist. I see your house exists. There's even a burglar who tried to break in. Hey, not in Muncie, I mean in Brooklyn.
Science is a tough mushal. Because science, they also don't believe anything ruchni, because they believe in only the ugashmi.
Yes, I'm just giving a mushal in the world of Gashmi itself, the atomic world versus the tangible, perceivable world. You understand? Just a mushal. Not only that, today the language, for example, not only today, quite a while, that 99.9% of the material of the table is empty space. Empty space. 99.9% of any chaymer in the world is empty space. Because in the atom itself, most of it is empty space.
That's how they move around.
Yeah, the atoms move around, you have the nucleus, but that space between the nucleus and the circle is all empty. That's 99% of this table. Not only it's pshat that there's some things I don't see. Most of the world is empty.
Isn't that emptiness also an energy?
Of course. That's where the Dvar Hashem works. That's where the Ruchni is. That's why it's empty space. That's where the Einyan is. What do we call it? We call it Einyan. But not only don't we acknowledge it with our eyes, for thousands of years we didn't even know this. When the Arizal says that in Doimim there's a whole life moving around, they say, yeah, the Arizal knew that's what Tzfas does for you. You go to Tzfas, everything is alive. Can't find a normal restaurant in Tzfas, but if you're looking for this, you'll find it.
Most of perfection technology comes from this, when they found out that empty space and you can move around.
Of course. The dynamics.
They built those colliders to observe what's in there.
Ad Kedei Kach, a big physicist told me, I didn't do the actual research on the statistics, he once said, if you would be able to see the atomic world, and you would take all the physical matter, not the empty space, of the whole planet, it would fit into one suitcase. The ganze Welt is one suitcase. You know the suitcase in the airport that goes through security? That's how much material is in this world.
That was the big
Now you say this is a joke. What do you mean? Just take this room, I could fit in this room into a suitcase? Yeah, because my eyes don't acknowledge this. I don't see 99% empty space. I don't even see Bechalal empty space. I see a table and I can even get hurt if I bang hard enough. Or break it, whatever. What happened here? Who's right? Who's wrong? The answer is, Kael Deus. I was created in a way, my eyes are not a mistake. We're not crazy people. This is the intention of creation. We see the Chitzonius as Yesh. The atomic world, I have to start convincing you. You're looking at me, you don't know if I'm Meshuggah, if you're Meshuggah, if I'm making this up, if I'm not making this up. You're going to go Google it after the shiur to make sure during the cigarette break if it's true, if it's not true. You can put it in the suitcase. Right? Why? Because it's not seeable. There was once, I'm giving a mashal here that even in our own world, we have these chilukei deis in terms of instinct. I mean, nobody argues today about this because the microscopes and the developed science and physics. Now, I'm not now even talking about the crazy part. The crazy part is called quantum mechanics, where there's absolute insanity. This is it's not insanity. It's just, it's fascinating. But then there's a level of insanity. Basically, that particles are moving clockwise and counterclockwise simultaneously. In other words, there's complete paradox going on, and Bechal, you can't describe anything in terms of existence. That's already that's already closer to what he's talking about here. Elikus, Einyan, and so forth. But even in the more external world of Gashmias, you can't compare. It's two universes, what I see and what the reality is. I see the table as a yesh, and the energy inside of it is Einyan, not because it's not there. Einay musig. Nobody knows what an atom is. Nobody knows. We don't know the etzem of it. We know certain symptoms. It's einay musig. And then there's the opposite of that. What if you were an atom? Well, you are. But what if you were looking at it from the perspective of the creator of it? Then, fakert. The table is the joke. It's the other way around. The table is the joke. It's like, what are you taking seriously? Somebody puts on a pair of glasses and sees something a certain way. The kud is what makes it all happen. The packaging, yeah. So now take it to the next level, what he's discussing here. From one perspective, the Geshem is the Yesh, the divine is Einay Musik. Fine, you tell me. Give me another drasha, give me another shear. It's not about a shear, it's about instinctively how we experience life. We experience life as the divine being nothingness. Nothingness. It's counterintuitive, it's not experiential. The Geshem is experiential, but Deis Hashem is another Deya. L'mayla yesh l'matai. Not that the mata doesn't exist. Just like l'mayla, just like in the other perspective, we don't say the Ruchnis doesn't exist. We just say I don't get it. L'mayla, they say the Gashmi, it's okay, I get, but it's so toughful. It says so it doesn't have mamashas. If I'll give you an example of taking the world of sports, for example, yeah? So sports pundits analyze games and Super Bowls, v'chuli, in a very dramatic way. What do they focus on? They focus on the people throwing the shots. Imagine they wouldn't talk about the people. All they would talk about is the ball itself. The ball itself went here, the ball itself went there, the ball went here, the ball went there. No. It's always about he took that shot. He trained them, he did, he ran, he caught, he flopped. He didn't flop, he played miserably the first half. What do you mean he? It's the ball! What he? Who cares about he? The ball! So you say, Chacham. Balls don't fly. Balls don't move. Balls don't do touchdowns. It's people who manipulate. It's people's power and skill and alacrity and professionalism and motivation and enthusiasm and teamwork that makes it happen. Say, no, it's the ball. It's all the ball. The ball is the hechitimtza of the game. But it's the people that create it. Right? That's the game. It's not the ball. The ball doesn't happen on its own. So imagine somebody could see that with the world. Somebody could see that the ball is flying, but all we see is a ball. We don't see anything else. So we're completely focused on the ball, nothing else. We don't see the internal energy that is behind all of it. We just see the outer layer of it. So that becomes our yesh. What if you could see that? So now that's just tuffle. The Gashmi is tuffle to the Ruchni. Or take another mashal that's brought in Tanya with imagination, for example. One of the great skills that frum Jews develop over being many years in yeshiva and in shul is they learn how to daydream. It's one of the great brachas that the Rabbi Shalom gave the Orthodox Jewish world to be able to survive in shul, to be able to survive yeshiva. You could stare at the Maggid Shir for an hour and a half. You could look at him like this, so everything is fine. As long as he doesn't ask you the place, right? It's fine because you daydream. And in your daydream, you can travel the world. Daydreams are wonderful experiences. They mamish let you go min hakatza lakatza. First of all, you go first class. Second of all, the food is good. There's even showers on the airplane. Whenever people daydream, probably as I'm talking right now, I just woke up 3 or 4 people from a very interesting daydream. Probably what you have to do today, appointments, shopping, a conversation with your wife that did happen, that's going to happen, etc., etc. And it could be you're still in the middle of your daydream. And if you are, I ask you, mechila, I don't mean disturb you. You could continue daydreaming and knock yourself out. And I hope you daydream about good things. But just remember, at some point, you're going to have to come back to reality. Now, imagine, okay, just imagine for a moment. I mean, I don't want to do science fiction here or a fictional novel. But just imagine you're daydreaming, say that you're by the Super Bowl. Or you're daydreaming that you're flying on an airplane to Israel, or you're daydreaming that you're shopping somewhere. Now imagine that these characters that you're daydreaming in your mind, because we have all these people in our mind, you would actually start giving them independent power. You start giving them independent power. And when you wake up from your daydream, they're still around you. Yeah, this is what we call a mental illness. Psychosis, yeah. You can't live like this. We say, no, it's just a daydream. What does it mean it's just a daydream? Imagine you wake up from sleep with a nightmare. And a whole day you're terrified because somebody came with a gun. And you're hollering a whole day. Your wife says it was just a dream. It was just a dream. Or a daydream. What does this mean? What does it mean it was just a daydream? What it means is it was just a reflection of your own neurons. It was just your mind concocting images. There's no reality. You say, no, there was a reality. It's not a reality. It's a reflection of your mind. It's your thoughts. There's nothing outside of your thoughts. That's pshat, a perception where the whole world is basically a reflection of divine thought, divine energy. So we don't see. We take the characters and we turn them into gods. But really the characters are essentially reflections of energy. So the Gashmis exists. Just like my daydream exists. I'm not crazy. But what is it? It doesn't have a substance over the Einyan. In fact, it doesn't have a substance legabe the yesh. Legabe the ruchni doesn't have a substance. It's a whole different metzius. They say there was once a chassid of the Balatanya who was going for Pidyon Shvuyim or some important cause, and he went to a city. And the city, those were the days there was some tension, some intense tension in the Jewish world. Nicht gedacht. And the Rav was a very powerful opponent. But he really needed to speak in the city. So he knew if he says who he is, he's going to send him out, he's going to send him to jump into the lake. So he says, can I speak in shul? So he says, you have to test him. Okay, he was a big Talmud Chacham. But then he says, what's your opinion of Chassidim? What's your opinion of Chassidim versus not? So he says to him, I'll tell you, not Chassidim think about God all day, and Chassidim think about themselves all day. He says, I like you. I like you. And he gives him kavod melachim, and he does what he has to do, and he accomplishes what he has to accomplish, right? Sunday he had to leave after breakfast, after Shachris. So he thanks him, and he says, I just want to clarify what I meant when I met you on Friday. What I meant was as follows. He says, a person normally, the fact that he exists is not a question. That's a given. So what does he think all day? If God exists, does he exist? Does he really exist? Why he exists? Should he exist? Who knows he exists? What does it mean that he exists? So he's thinking about God all day. He says, from my Rebbe we learned that the existence of God, that's the Dover Pasha, that's a given. So all day I have to think about myself. Where do I fit in? Do I exist? Don't I exist? How do I exist? Why do I exist? Why do I feel I exist? What is the meaning of that existence? That's the tension between the Tekel Deis Hashem. Now which one is right? Which one is right? Which one is wrong? So there's two Deis. Milmaila yesh lamata ayin, lamata yesh lamayla ayin. So he says, V'zeu Einyan hoida'ah, she'anachnu moidim, she'agashmi is batel ve'emes hu k'may shehu kameh. That's why we say moidim anachnu. What's the moidim? Moidim is the awareness that we're moidim, that even though I have this opinion, and I'm going to continue to have this opinion, because this is my intuition, nonetheless I can appreciate the fact that the emes is k'may shehu kameh. The emes is the way it is in his presence. V'zuhi, here he gives his definitions of Yiddishkeit, once in a while. V'zuhi mailas kolo oisik b'teiro mitzvahs, rak la'aloyson miyesh la'ayin. Essentially, the unique contribution of all Torah and mitzvahs is to align one paradigm with the other paradigm. Basically, la'aloyson miyesh la'ayin. To be able to reveal the ayin in the yesh, to be able to align the yesh, which is the geshem, with the ayin, which is the ruchni, to be able to create peace between these two perceptions. The whole Torah and mitzvahs is essentially an exercise in the mindful awareness that energy is at the core of the universe. Oneness is at the core of reality. The divine is at the core of existence, and all of existence is essentially a manifestation of God, a manifestation of oneness.
That's not aligning two perceptions, that's reversing your perception.
Okay. Reversing your perception. V'lechein amru Razal, that's why the Gemara says, Ksuvas, beginning of Ksuvas, G'doilim maisit tzadikim and maisit shemayim v'aretz. Maisit tzadikim should be Ksuvas, right?
Of course it's bigger.
Huh?
Of course it's bigger.
Ma'aseh tzadikim is greater than Ma'aseh shemayim va'aretz. Why? Ksuvas dafei amid aleph. Dorosh bar kapara g'doyle Ma'aseh tzadikim Ma'aseh shemayim va'aretz. Ma'aseh shemayim va'aretz, it says in the pasuk, Af yodi yosda eretz v'yemini tabcha shemayim. My hand made the earth. But Ma'aseh dem shel tzadikim, it says, Mikdash adne koinenu yodecha. Two hands. Ma'aseh tzadikim is greater than Ma'aseh shemayim va'aretz. Not one hand, but mikdash is Ma'aseh yedei tzadikim, and that's koinenu yadecha loshen rabim, both hands. What's pshat? Ma'aseh tzadikim is greater than Ma'aseh shemayim va'aretz. Really?
Yes.
Azay metapshitis.
Because God can do anything, and as a human beings, we have to work on it.
Okay, but what's pshat g'doilim taka? What's pshat? Zok der azay. Shemaiseh shemayim va'aretz umei ayin liyesh. Ma'aseh shemayim v'aretz is what? From ayin came a yesh. The journey of creation is from nothingness, somethingness, or actually from energy, matter, from the divine, tangible. V'hu master esa ayin. And once the yesh becomes a yesh, it eclipses the ayin, it eclipses the divine. Ma'aseh tzadikim oiskim b'Torah mitzvahs. Ma'aseh tzadikim is oisim meyesh ayin. They take from a yesh and they turn it into ayin. Liyas hakol kamoishahu kamei. Everything should be experienced from his perspective. V'zehu g'dolim. That's why it's called g'dolim. Why is it called g'dolim? So here he goes into a whole sugya what makes the Ma'aseh Tzadikim greater than Ma'aseh Shemayim V'aretz. But the key is that Ma'aseh Shemayim V'aretz is from Ayin Yesh. Ma'aseh Tzadikim is from Yesh Ayin. To turn from Yesh Ayin is a far deeper achievement than to turn from Ayin, make from Ayin Yesh. When you make from Ayin Yesh, the Ayin actually becomes concealed in the Yesh. The Ayin becomes eclipsed in the Yesh. Ma'aseh Tzadikim is from Yesh Ayin. This is the beginning to understand the difference of the first bracha and the second bracha of Berachas Hamazon, where we say Moedim Anachnu Lach.
So basically, is that the tzaddik does the yesh to the ayin, that is working through the yesh, that it becomes pure.
Yes. To be able to go the opposite direction is a whole different thing than going the direction from Ayin Yesh is a God's achievement. The human achievement, to be able to take from the Yesh and reveal that really it's ayin, that's the unique achievement of the human being, which is contrary to what you would expect. The expectation is the yesh is yesh. To be able to make from that yesh ayin is the surprise, it's the shock of human existence, as he will continue to explain. Daf Samach Vav, Amud Beis, page 131, all the way on the bottom. Actually, we're on top of 132. Mamash on top of 132. The first line of 132. So there's a distinction between the first bracha and the second bracha of benching. In the first bracha of benching, the focus is Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam hazonos ha'olam. It ends with the words Baruch Atah Hashem hazonos ha'koil. The second bracha of benching starts with the words Noida L'cha Hashem Elokeinu Asher Nchalta L'Aviseinu. And you see that the theme of Noida continues V'ala Koil Hashem Elokeinu Anachnu Moidim Lach U'Mevarchem Oisach. So even though bracha is introduced and it ends with Baruch Atah Hashem Alaretz V'al Hamazon, but the term Haida'ah is introduced. Literally, Haida'ah means gratitude, thankfulness. You're thankful. Noida L'cha, we thank you. Hashem Elokeinu. Ala Koil Hashem Elokeinu Anachnu Moidim Lach. Like we say in davening, Moidim Anachnu Lach Shatu Hashem Elokeinu Le'olam Vad Noida L'cha Nasapati L'secha. It's all a form of Todah Rabbah, gratefulness, gratitude, Hakaras HaTov, thanks, and so forth. Here he teaches, however, that the Moidim also represents the concept of Haida'ah in terms of submission. Moidim Chachamim L'Reb Meir. This doesn't mean Chachamim thanked Reb Meir. It means the Chachamim acquiesced. They surrendered their position. They submitted their das to the das of Reb Meir. Even though we had a disagreement and we maintained our view, nonetheless, we're moida either in this particular area or in another area where we agree with you. However, whatever the context of that particular discussion and shas is, whenever the moidim is. You have moidim Chachamim Reb Meir, or moidim Chachamim Reb Yehuda, whatever the situation. What is the moedim here that we were addressing? So the Balatanya said, Keil Deis Hashem. The Pasuk says, Keil Deis Hashem, which means God is a God of perceptions. That there are basically two general perceptions of how to define reality. One way of defining reality is that the intangible is not real. What is real is the tangible, the physical, the material, the brute. And the more physical, the more material, the more real. The more transcendent, the less real. And even if I could prove it, and even if I can accept that it exists, and even if I can have some recognition of it or some sensitivity to it, I ultimately call it ayin. I call it nothingness. Why do I call it nothingness? Usually we call nothingness that which is nothing. Nothing. You say it's nothing, it doesn't exist. Here I'm calling it nothingness because I have no way to connect to it, to relate to it. I can't comprehend it. And because I can't comprehend it, in my world it's called nothing. In my world it doesn't exist. In my frame of reference it doesn't exist. And this is a critical idea, that you call something ayin not because it doesn't exist. For you it doesn't exist. And the reason it doesn't exist is it doesn't speak to me. It doesn't it's not part of the orbit of my reality. The fascinating thing is that for another person, that may be all existence. That is existence. Nothing else is existence. What you think exists is meaningless. Again, it may actually exist, but what does it mean it exists? Sometimes something may not exist in your mind. You don't even understand that it exists. Sometimes it exists, but it doesn't have much significance. But that's two completely separate paradigms. And that transition is necessary when one tries to begin the process of true spiritual growth, to be able to understand that metamorphosis from a state of consciousness where the Geshem is Yesh and everything else is Ayin. Even if you tell me it exists, but I don't relate to it as an existence, so therefore I call it nothing. I have no other way. I have no other way. I mean, what are you talking about? A nail. I'm going to give a mundane example. Take a nail. A nail understands one language. It's called a hammer. I want you to stand by your sukkah, Erev Sukkos, and speak to the nail and say, Hazachayin, listen, there's a mitzvah in Torah, Besukkos Teish Shivas Yamim. I just finished learning Masechta Sukkah. I really need you to go into the wall, because I don't know how to build a sukkah. And you'll explain the nail betuf tam vadas, what God is, what sukkah is, al pi nister, al pi nigla, al pi pshat, remez, drush sod. And you'll explain to the nail how vital this is, and how this is the reason it was created, and this is the purpose of the cosmos, and by the nail entering the sukkah it will fulfill its ultimate destiny and mission. Somehow I have a hunch that the nail will look at you as your teacher told you, v'yahon. You remember what your teacher said? You ever understood what he meant? V'yahon by bnei Adam. What it means is, kaparis, we say bnei Adam yosh v'choshech v'tzalmavis. But how does the chicken respond to the bnei Adam? So the teacher would say, was cookstaf mir v'yahon by bnei Adam. Which means like the chicken when you're saying kaparis. Somehow the nail would not be impressed from your lecture. For whatever reason. Why not? Why not? If you give the same shiur to people, wow, sukkah, sukkah, sukkah. The nail understands one reality. It's called a frask with a hammer. You take a hammer and you go boom, and they'll say, okay, now you're talking. Now you're talking. There was once, they say, a guy came to a bank at 4 o'clock. He had to make a deposit. They said, sorry, it's closed. He says, I need it. It's emergency. The computers are down. The woman is arguing for half an hour, explaining. No, this is corrupt. This is cruel. I'm a customer for 25 years. Call the manager. The manager goes, says, what do you want? He says, I have to make a deposit. He says, impossible. He says, I'm not leaving. The guy gives him a punch in the face. He falls down on the floor and he says, okay, I'm going. So the woman runs after him and says, I don't understand. I'm explaining this to you 45 minutes. Doesn't work. And he comes, I say, one punch, it works. He tells her, you were telling it to me. He explained it to me. So the nail, there's only one way to explain something to a nail, and that is a hammer. A hammer. Now I ask you another question. What if you're talking to a very intelligent and sensitive person? Okay? Think about this. And you could convince them to do something through a hammer, or you convince them to do something through words that touch them in a very deep way. Where do you think you affect them more? A hammer, fine, you may be scared, you may fight back, I may coerce you. Even if you surrender, it's half not willingly, you don't really want it. Words actually are far more influential because they change people. So for the nail, words are ayin. Not that words don't exist. In the world of the nail, words don't exist. If I would speak to the nail, he would say ayin. In another world, words, arguments, compelling conversation influences and persuades and changes far more than anything else. The famous Chasam Sofer, the Chasam Sofer writes that anywhere it says in Chumash, take a person, Rashi always says, kicha b'dvarim, through words. Kachas Yeshua, through words. Kachas Pinchas, through words. Vayikach Koirach, through words. Kachas Aaron, every time Rashi makes sure. Kachas Aaron, through words. Talk to him. How does Rashi know? Maybe Kachas Aaron means take Aaron by the lapel and schlep him. How do you know? Well, you can't take a person. So he says something absolutely beautiful and very fundamental, I think, to the world of education. Huh? Yeah. He says a person is made up of two realities. There's the flesh, but then there's the inner personality, the inner soul. So Rashi says, let me tell you a klal. When you have to take a person, if you're going to chop them by their flesh and schlep them, you didn't take the person. You took their bones, you took their arms, you took their legs, you didn't take the person. On the contrary, it could be actually you furthered them, you distanced them from where you want to take them, because internally they're not there, they don't show up. They're actually feeling resentful for the fact that physically you made them be there. So actually you took them further away from where you wanted to take them. He says there's only one way you could take a person. If you believe a person is a machine, you pick up a machine and you take it. I take the cup, I take it where I want. I take the phone where I want. If you believe a person is a machine, it works. What Rashi is telling you is a person is not a machine, a person has a soul. How do you take a soul? I can't schlep a soul. It doesn't work. There's only one way. I could speak to a soul. I can inspire a soul. I can move a soul. So Shabbos morning I say, Yankee, time to go to shul. Zeit zu gehen in shul. Ich will nicht. I don't want. Tati's going to take you. I don't want. I'll show you who's boss. And what do? You chop on Yankee by the coat, or in the good old days, by the ear, and you take him to shul. And you're convinced, huh? Well, you take him by the hand and you schlep him. You schlep him, he cries for 2 blocks, he calms down, he resents it, but he goes to shul. And you internally feel like you did the right thing, you took your child to shul. Didn't you? Look, he's in shul. You may even force him to sit the whole Kriyas HaTorah. Not only is he in shul, he's even listening to Kriyas HaTorah. Some Sefer says, Rabbi, you didn't take him to shul. You took his hands to shul. You took his feet to shul. You took his body to shul. You didn't take him to shul. He's not there. On the contrary, you may have taken him far away from the shul. Because internally, he doesn't want to be there. He hates it there. He resents being there. And I'm not discussing now if there's ever a need for this or not. That's a separate option. You can discuss it with your local Orthodox rabbi or mentor.
Know what it is.
But just know what it is. Maybe sometimes you need to have flesh and shul. It's a good thing, especially if there's, I don't know, if there's good candies. Huh? Mashchayil Beis HaMedrash. Mashchayil Beis HaMedrash is a very misunderstood Gemara. Mashchayil Beis HaMedrash is something they often tell Bachrim who have struggles, and they say, just learn. Everything is going to go away. You ever hear this? They ever tell this to boys that come to you? Learn, everything will go away. Sometimes that doesn't happen. Nothing goes away, right? I know the Mamar Chazal. I can even tell you where it says in Psachim Daf Nun. I know the Mamar Chazal.
It says Mashcheyo.
What's Mashcheyo? What's Mashcheyo? You have a Yetzer Hara, right? You have a big Yetzer Hara. So what do we say? Mashcheyo? A manuva. Yeah. Pagabach manuva zeh Mashcheyo Beis HaMedrash. Mashcheyo Beis HaMedrash is actually something very, very beautiful. And that is, our Beis HaMedrash has to have space, even for our vulnerable ghosts and demons. Mashcheyo Beis HaMedrash. Torah has space for the parts of you that you call a manuva. You don't have to show up to the Beis Medrash and cut off half of your personality and be the perfect, impeccable boy. Mashcheyo Beis HaMedrash. There's room in the Beis Medrash for all aspects of your personality. Even your struggles, even your difficulties, there's space in Torah for it. You don't have to cut out your heart, half your brain, half your soul, half your instincts, half your emotions in order to show. Mashcheyo Beis HaMedrash. Bring him into the Beis Medrash. This is part of your journey. As we spoke many times, Vayigdalu Ha'arim. I mean, it's a continuous theme in Torah Baal Shem Tov. This, the Moirei Nayim Habol Etamei Poischen Loi. You remember Moirei Nayim Parshas Vayishlach V'Timna Hoisa Pilegesh. Basically, This is your path. This is your path. It's part of your Beis Medrash. Don't be afraid. So the Chassam Sofer is just identifying. You took arms and legs into the shul. You didn't take anything else. Kicha, there's only one way I can take a person. Words. I have to speak to your soul. I have to speak to your mind, speak to your personality. And then I don't schlep. On the contrary. The less I schlep, the more powerful it is. The more I schlep, the less powerful it is. When you really persuade somebody, so they're moved. When they're moved, you're not moving them. Huh? Huh?
Some negotiation.
That's money. Stuff mit Geld. You buy a tennis bracelet, she'll come. So, b'meila, you have a situation here. In the world of the human being, words are sometimes much more powerful than anything else. It can change your life. A hammer can hurt you. It won't change and transform your internal self. So what is real? Who's right? Is the nail right or not? And in a person, it's himself, there'll be different levels. For one person, they're in a certain state of consciousness where they only understand physical. And then there's another level of consciousness where the physical almost becomes immaterial, it becomes insignificant. Those are the transitions, and these transitions operate in myriads and myriads and myriads of levels, ad infinitum. In other words, it never ends. In one state, this is yesh and this is ayin. When you come to a higher state, the ayin becomes yesh, and a higher ayin, a higher level is now ayin. And when you reach that state, the new ayin becomes your new yesh as you're elevated, and a new level becomes ayin. And so it goes and goes and goes. What is reality for you? So for the nail, words are absolutely non-existent. It doesn't exist. So we call godliness ayin. Why do we call godliness ayin? Not because it doesn't exist, because in our world, it's einoi musig. I may not feel its existence, not know its existence, not experience its existence. What do I call yesh? I call yesh. This is yesh. But this kel deis Hashem. There's a very different perception, and that is actually the other way around. The more intangible, the more real. The more transcendent, the more real. The more ayin, actually, the more yesh. Lahanchil oyavai, yesh. That's the real yesh. Lahanchil oyavai, yesh. You're dealing with Ziv HaShchina. Asad HaKadosh Baruch Hu lahanchil, the end of Uktzin, the last Mishnah of Shas. After you learn through the whole Shas, hopefully your paradigm changed. What is ayin and what is yesh? Perhaps. Sometimes not, but perhaps. It changes. Now, what do we mean it changes? Not that the Gashmis doesn't exist anymore. A person also believes in hammers. Even a very intelligent person knows that words are not the only existence. But the question is, what really holds sway, and what is tuffle, what is subservient, what is secondary?
My mama was different. He never hit me. He was hitting me. It's hard.
That's what he told you?
Yeah,
Sit there, man, value you.
You drank the Kool-Aid.
Okay.
As a horse, I got as a horse.
So this is the paradigms that the person developing himself or herself in terms of Avodas Hashem ought to understand. There's the Kel Deis Hashem. And once a person can appreciate this and be sensitive to this, it actually allows for a person to at least be able to entertain the possibility that that which looks so real and tangible and physical is completely tuffle, subservient to the divine energy that gives it substance, that gives it chiyus, that gives it kiyum. Spiritual reality is far more real than physical reality, because physical reality is only a manifestation of consciousness. So consciousness is far more real than anything else. But this is a work, it's work, because it's counterintuitive. When we begin our journey, all we have is the tangible to work with. And therefore it's a given that that's reality. And it's a journey literally today. All wisdom is based on this journey. There's no science without this journey, no physics without this journey, there's no math without this journey, there's no biology without this journey, especially physics. It's a journey from the material to the consciousness. And seeing basically how consciousness is at the core of reality. But consciousness you have to have a sensitivity to. And what state of consciousness? So you have a very interesting situation where in one person's life, one thing is completely ayin, it means absolutely nothing. It means nothing. You're not talking to me. You're not talking about anything. You're talking about nothingness. Thank you, but no thank you. And for another person, that is where reality is. What this person thinks is ayin, for him, this is literally where reality is. This is where all reality revolves. This is the most significant. This is the most important dimension of reality. Now, this is pshat in the Gemara. Gedolim ma'aseh tzadikim and ma'aseh shamayim v'aretz. Gemara in Ksuvas Daf Hey. Ma'aseh shamayim v'aretz is the journey from ayin to yesh. Ma'aseh tzadikim is the journey from yesh to ayin, and that's gedolim. Creation is basically. The Alter Rebbe once said in Yiddish, he said, which is basically he's saying here, but he said it in Yiddish, abgeteicht, he said azay. Der Eibishter macht von Ruchnius Gashmius. Kedei az a Yid soll machen von Gashmius Ruchnius. The process of creation is the conversion of energy into matter. The process of human life is the conversion of matter into energy, which basically sums it up. Or to quote the words of the great Jewish Choikrim, in the Sifrei Musar, Hagbaras Hatsura al HaChomer. Tsura, energy, Chomer, matter. The cosmos' development from energy into matter.
So according to that, you should be able to put in a nail without the hammer.
Ultimately, v'nigla kvoid Hashem v'ro kol basa yachtov. The Medrash says that la'asid lavoi, right? You're going to come on Shabbos and pick off a fig from a fig tree, and the fig is going to scream, Shabbos hayoim, without throwing rocks.
Why do you translate surah as energy rather than form?
I'm translating it based on the Rambam's description, Hilchos Yesodei HaTorah, that surah is the neshama of something. It's connected to physical form as well, because physical form usually is what allows you to see the theme of the object. But here we're talking surah in terms of inner substance, the inner core. So that's the process, that's Ma'aseh Shamayim V'aretz. Hashem takes divine energy, so to speak, himself, and he converts it into the world that we all observe and experience. We now enter into this world, and what do we have? We have this world, we have our bodies, and we have the world. And we now take the matter, and we look at the matter, and we say, and now let's bring you back to your energy. Sublimate you back to your energy. And that's the whole process. It's the process of food that we have been discussing. Food has matter, and food has energy. And you know, the parts of the food that are more matter have less energy. And the parts of the food that are more energy, less matter. And that process to be able to look at the matter and align it and bring it back to the energy, that's a process of yesh ayin. Generally, all processes where the human being transcends the husk, the shell, the klipa of the paradigm where the brute is the only yesh, and they allow the geshem with he aligns, he brings up the geshem to the ruach, the chayma to the tzura. That's the process of yesh ayin, and he says that the whole Torah and mitzvahs basically is a form of sublimation from yesh to ayin, from the physical to the energy, from the material to the transcendent, and that's gedoylei tzadikim ma'aseh shamayim v'aretz, because you can't compare making from ayin yesh to making from yesh ayin. Why is it such a bigger chiddush? Say, okay, it's a different process. Why is it such a chiddush? So he says in the top of 132, Ki yadua maimer Chazal. This is based on another maimer Chazal. Mesechta Tainis daf chafei amud aleph. Gemira, sagt the Gemara. We have a klal. Gemira means we have a tradition. We learned. Mishamayim me'av yavi. Mishkaloi shakli. Von Himmel gibt men. Men hebt nicht. Heaven gives. Heaven does not take. Me'av yaviv means you give. It gives. Mishkal, shakal in Aramaic means takes. Mishkaloi shakli. You know where this Gemara comes from? You remember anybody? You mean Reb Chanina ben Doisa. You mean Reb Chanina ben Doisa, right?
The mountain, out in the mountain.
Reb Chanina ben Doisa should be tiniest of Chofei.
The leg, you want to back the leg.
Tazai. Reb Chanina ben Doisa, the Gemara says, was a Malumad ben Nisim, but he was very, very poor. So his wife says, How long do we have to suffer? The ganze Welt, the whole world gets nourishment from you, and we have nothing. It says, Boyer Rachme, Yotzesa Kamin Pisas Yad. He got a gift from heaven. Kamin Pisas Yad, like a, it looked like Pisas Yad, the palm of a hand. And it was made of gold, and then he saw that that it's going to be taken from Olam Haba, so he asked it should be taken back, and they took it back. And the Gemara says, Godel hoya nes acher en yoisem in arishan. The Gemiri demi of Yavi mishkaloi shakli. Tainus chafeya mer aleph. Could be. From heaven they give, they don't take. So the fact that he got, that itself was a miracle. But the nesa acher and that they took it back was yoisem in arishan. What's pshat? If heaven could give, heaven could take. What's pshat? Rebbeinu Shalom could give, he takes back. Chayches the Alter Rebbe, Hainu, because one is a process of converting energy into matter, and one is a process of converting matter into energy. And that's a whole different process. V'hainu, shebchinis oir v'shefa elokis, hanimshech me'ayin liyesh. Liyos nimshech v'bchinis mamalik halal min koyach hapoyel benifel, l'tzoydech his havus ha'olam. It's a little bit of a long sentence here, which is soon going to finish. There's the Oir v'Shefa Elokis. Oir is light and Shefa is flow. So there's the divine energy that comes from Ayin Liyesh. What do we mean it comes from Ayin? Not that God is nothing. It comes from a state that we call Ayin. Because again, in the world of the nail, words don't exist. It just doesn't add up to anything. In my orbit, it's just not a reality. Which, by the way, is one of the most fundamental components, by the way, in communication. To understand what is reality for the people you're talking to. Sometimes you're talking to people about something that in their world is ayin. You know how successful you're going to be? Ayin, that's how successful you'll be. And you don't realize that. Favas Hestimate, why don't you hear what I'm saying? Because I don't hear what you're saying. As far as I know, you're talking about nothingness. In your world, it may also be ayin. You're just making believe it's a yesh. Or it may taka be. But that understanding where the person is coming from is critical, it's vital. Because if in his world it's an ayin, you didn't tell me anything. Mamash spoke to me about nothing. Right? And this is very important. Kids grow up, for example, hearing a lot about HaKadosh Baruch Hu, or Hashem, or God, or Gan Eden, or Gehenna. Does anybody stop to bother and say, what is this thing you call HaKadosh Baruch Hu? How do you what does it mean for you? You'll be shocked to hear what 40-year-olds say about it, what 70-year-olds say about it, right? Never mind what 14-year-olds say about it. It's taken for granted. How do they know? Well, what does it mean? It may be so distorted and so inconsistent with anything that makes sense or even matters that it's sometimes frightening. So I talk about something, person has absolutely no clue what it is, but I take it for granted. These things have to be addressed. So when he's creating from ayin to yesh, meaning from divine energy yesh, it comes into what's called mamalakal. Mamalakal means to fill the world's koyach hapoyel benifel. Koyach hapoyel benifel means the power of the creator in the creation. Everything has ayin in it. Everything has koyach hapoyel. Koyach hapoyel benifel means the truth of every material, of every item, of every substance. The truth of it. What is the truth of reality? That's called koyach hapoyel benifel. Be able to see the koyach hapoyel. The Maggid, the Mezritcha Maggid, once looked at a keli, a beautiful, beautiful sculptured vessel, and he said that the one who made it was blind on one eye. That's what he said. So it was explained what's pshat. He recognized the koyach hapoyel benifel. What you create has your energy, but most people don't see the energy. Sometimes if you're a maven in sports, you see how the ball is flying and you know whose shot it was. You know who threw it, who the quarterback. You could see, if you're a big mumche, you see from the movements, and you could see the spin, whatever it is. I'm not the mumche on this, but there's big experts in this, and they could tell you this is his catch, or this is his throw. Koyach hapoyel, but in everything there's koyach hapoyel benifel. The ultimate koyach hapoyel benifel is you decompose something. What do you get on the bottom, at the core? That's called koyach hapoyel. That itself has many, many layers until you hit the ayin. The ayin is the koyach eliki. As I told you, the fascinating thing today is that we know that 99.9% of every physical item is empty space. That's where the koyach hapoil, the ayin is. It's literally ayin. You look at it, it's empty space. What's there? That's where the dvar Hashem is. That is actually where reality happens. That is where reality is. If you have a sensitivity to it. Our eyes don't like dealing with empty space. So we turn it into a yesh. And now we can say it's a table and life works. But we do it all the time. The openness to be able to understand the ayin, the dynamics. Now what happens if the doors of perception were cleansed and you could see your own ayin? What do you think would happen to you if you would see your own ayin?
Very frightening.
Huh? Lav dafka frightening. But let's say you'd be able to see. First of all, you would see yourself in a dynamic, always in a state of motion, of movement. Every moment, that's what he says here. On that level, there's no such a thing as a thing. It's a vibrant dynamic flow. That is all the me'ayin liyesh. Now he's medayik. What's that? Va'ata mechayes kulam. Pirush ata. Aleph, Tov, Vehei Mitzoy Sapeh. You give vitality to all. This is from Vayevorech David. Va'ata. Ata is 3 letters. Aleph, Tov, and Hey. Aleph to Tov represents the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. Hey represents the Hey Mitzoy Sapeh. There are 4 vocal sources for all of the 22 letters. For example, Aleph, Ches, Hey, Ayin come from the throat. Beis, Vav, Mem, Pei come from the lips. You open your lips, try to say you won't be able to say. You could say ha, ha. I can't say try saying a beis without the lips. There's 5 moitzais. Moitzah means the source where all letters are formed from. Aleph, Taf are the letters, and Hey is the source. Hey moitzai sapeh. Hainu shekol ikir metzias shtalshlus b'bchinas oisius. This means that the whole primary core of all ishtalshlus, of all creation on all levels, is really letters. All the chiyus comes from Aleph through Taf, which comes from Hey. Of course, you read this, you say, whole ishtalshlus comes from Oisius. I'm just compelled to say this. If you'll ask today, right, the great physicist, what is matter made up of? And the most cutting edge answer will be letters. Basically letters, almost like a computer code, a computer program code. You talk about DNA, the DNA, the basic structure of our organisms. How do they describe DNA? Basically as letters wrapped up in like so to speak in a scroll, but incredibly how much you have there. But it's basically letters, oisius. And in this sense, the universe is united because it's all oisius. It's essentially oisius. It's va'ata, aleph, taf, hey. After the 22 letters, you have another 5 letters, which are the double letters of Aleph Beis. Shlos Mem, Mem Soifis, Nun Soifis, Lange Nun, Lange Tzadik, Lange Pei, and Lange Chaf. Man Tzapach, Mem Nun Tzadik Pei Chaf. So it's 22 plus 5. These 5 in Kabbalah represent the Hey Mitzoy Sapeh, the 5 sources from where all the letters come out. They're also known as the Hey Gvuris, because Oisius represent division, the division of the energy, which always comes from Gvura, discipline that creates separation and division. So they're called Hey Gvuris. And this is the process of creation. This is Pshat in Gemara, Mehav Yahavi. From heaven, they always give. Hainu. It's not only Reb Chanina ben Dosa felt it, but this is the process. This is what heaven does. It gives. The process of Shamayim is that there's always a flow of divine energy from nothingness to somethingness in order to give vitality to the worlds. What do we mean from ayin liyesh? From a state of transcendent intangible energy to a state of tangible geshem that we can relate to, and we don't call this ayin, we call it a yesh. And yet what fills it? The ayin, koyach hapel benifel. V'zeh odei ha'alev, this is perception number 1. Shemel maila lamata sheyenim shechtamid er v'chayis v'zeh ma'aser shamayim v'aretz. From God's perspective, the yesh is really the final product. It's just the I'm not going to call it a joke, it's not a joke, but it's basically just the manifestation of all the energy. Action happens in the world of Ayin. This is the perspective of Shemayim. This is Ma'aser Shemayim V'aretz, the creation of heaven and earth, which is always from Ayin Liyesh, where Oir and Chiyus, energy converts into matter. Aval B'chinas Tzadikim G'doylim and Ma'aser Shemayim V'aretz. When it comes to Tzadikim, which represents V'amechul and Tzadikim, the human condition, it's even greater than Shemayim V'aretz. Why? Shemahapchim u'mevaredim, Aydei B'chinas Hatikun, Partzuf Adam, B'chinas Yesh HaGashmi, Li'is Oila L'B'chinas Ayin De La'ela, Shehu Yesh HaAmiti. The Heizverter. The mile of the avoid of a person is much greater, because they do the transformation, the unnatural, the metamorphosis, as a result of operating in a space of tikkun, which is parts of Adam, the parts of the structure, the organism of Adam. Shema, the human being could look at the Yesh HaGashmi and take it and transform it and elevate it, so it should be Oila L'B'chinas Ayin De La'ela Shehu HaYesh HaAmiti. Now it converts. He takes the Yesh and he brings it up to the Ayin De La'ela. What's Ayin De La'ela? It literally means the higher nothingness.
Higher than Tohu.
Right? Which is the ultimate Yesh HaAmiti. It's the real Yesh, because Lamaila, that is Yesh, and our Yesh is Ayin. And the person has that capacity to be able to steer at the Yesh, and not only not fall in the process, fall prey, but actually align or sublimate or metamorphosize that Yesh and bring it, align it with its own core, which is the Ayin De La'ela, which is the real Yesh, which is Garda Yesh. This means aligning physicality with spirituality is not about the destruction of the matter. It's about bringing it to a state where its somethingness becomes real rather than illusionary. And that's the question. The question in life is, and we come back here to a very common theme, what is Avodas Hashem? What is Avodas Hashem? To make from Yesh Ayin is really to make from Ayin Yesh. To make from Yesh Ayin is really to take that which seems like a Yesh and turn it into a real Yesh. Turn it into real existence. Bittul HaYesh LaAyin means making the Yesh a real Yesh. That's why he finishes, Shehu HaYesh HaAmiti. That is the only real Yesh. You allow it to have real substance. Why? Because it becomes a reflection of its divine core. And once it becomes a reflection of its divine core, now it exists for real. Now its substance is real. Now its substance is not only on display. It's not only illusory. It's not only in your own perception, a temporary, transient perception of life, but rather it becomes ayin, which is guard the real yesh. Because what you're calling nothingness is esh somethingness. That is real. That is where life begins. That is where reality begins.
When we say we're sublimating it, aligning it, bringing back to the ultimate yesh, what does that mean? With our Torah mitzvahs, it's that we're changing our consciousness. That's what he means. That we're recognizing. In other words, we're not doing anything to the divine energy. That's when we can't be Mashana God, but we're doing. It's that we're doing something to ourselves, and therefore restoring it into our consciousness.
Yes. I think it's the process happens on different levels. The first thing is a consciousness issue. Really, the core of Torah and mitzvahs is the metamorphosis of mindfulness, of consciousness, from perceiving the self and other selves and the world around us, from being just a brute, physical, external reality, and to be able to perceive within ourselves and within that which is around us, its soul, its inner consciousness. That's a change of attitude, it's a change of perception. It's a change of perspective. Essentially, every mitzvah in one form or another. What does Rashi say? When he told him to give machzas hashekel, so the Mefarshim struggle. What was the problem with machzas hashekel? That he had to show him a matbeya shel eish. A matbeya shel eish. Yeah. Remember, I once heard from the Lubavitcher Rebbe, he said, Azoi, he said, Hey, Lekash Baruch L'Moshe Matbeya Shel Eish, the Eberstadt Bavizin Moshe, as wenn a kind nehmt a penny, or a nickel, und gibt es auf Tzedakah, is a fire-dick nickel. It's fire-dick. When a child takes a nickel and gives it for tzedakah, it's not a nickel. It's fire. The nickel is on fire. At surface, you're giving a coin. What are you doing? You're giving a coin. Essentially, the tzedakah really, what is tzedakah? Tzedakah recognizes the unity of creation, the organic symmetry of creation, the fact that it's not just I versus you. I share something with you. So that very mitzvah is another example of taking the yesh and aligning it and bringing it up to a state of ayin. The same is true with tefillah, the same is true with Torah, the same is true with every single mitzvah. In one way or another is the hisalus of the yesh to the ayin. And all of Torah is based on this premise. This is Gedolah Ma'aseh Tzadikim. This is already a chiddush, because this is not the process of heaven. This is how earth responds to heaven. Heaven gives, heaven doesn't take. This is what tzaddikim do. This is what we do. That we bring it back. We say, here's your yesh, and now let me give it back to you. V'zeu Einyan anachnu moidim lach. This is the moidim lach. This is the moidim. What's the moidim? Moidim chachamim l'Reb Meir. There's a machlokes. Machlokes is between me and myself. What is reality? That's the question. What is reality? What is not reality? What is real and what is fake? What is it? It's a big machlokes. The machlokes happens in me constantly. Every day it's a machlokes. So how do you start off your day? Moidani lefanecha. How do you start off davening? Nusach Svart. Hoidu l'Hashem kiru b'shmoi. And in the Ashkenazim it takes a few minutes, but they'll also get there.
But we all start at the same time with Moidani.
Moidani, everybody is the same today. Reb Meir Shapiro once said, there was once a Jewish local politics. So he said, the machlokes is Hoidu before Baruch Shamar before Hoidu. When it comes to Yehi Chvoid Hashem La'olam, everybody has to be on the same page. Yehi Chvoid Hashem La'olam, they should be on the same page.
Isn't Baruch Shamar a higher level than Hoidah?
Yeah, that's the word. Why do you start off with Hoidah? He says that's already the second bracha. Because the moment you wake up in the morning, you have to acknowledge there's a machlokes going on. Mashchei lebeis hamedrash. Then you open your eyes, there's a machlokes. Don't think there's no machlokes. Machlokes. Machlokes is what's reality. The outer or the inner. The external or the deeper. That which I may sense immediately, or that which I know with my mind's eye or with my heart's eye. It's right away a machlokes. And the first premise is moidim anachnu lach. That even though my instincts or my addictions or my fears or my insecurities or my short-sightedness or just my natural biological self will not acknowledge the ayin as reality, all I will acknowledge is the most superficial yesh, and in that itself may be the superficial yesh. The process of the journey of my day is going to be one in which I will constantly align my own yesh to my own ayin, and the yesh of the world to the ayin of the world. And by doing that, I will allow the yesh to actually become a real yesh, a yesh amiti. Rather than a fake yesh, it actually becomes a real yesh, because the truth sets you free. The truth gives you real substance. A word from Reb Nachman in Likutei Maharan. He says azay. It says in Pirkei Avos, Hamahalech Baderech Yechidi. What's the lashon? Anybody remembers Pirkei Avos here? We don't learn that anymore. No, not that one. Halon Balayla. You know the guy who hangs out all night alone. You know what I'm talking about. Harezim is Chayev benafshe. Perik Gimel Mishnah Daled. Reb Chanina, the son of Chachinoi. Haneir Balayla. You're up at night. You know those people? Hamahalech Baderech. Nobody at this shir. Hamahalech Baderech Yechidi. And you take a hike alone. Umefana Liboy Levatola. And you allow your heart to go idle. Harezim is Chayev benafshe. You're endangering your life. Al Pi Pshat, it's basically a life of chaos. You're up a whole night instead of sleeping. You go outside alone, it's dangerous. Oh no, you think about is nothing. You know who you end up with, and you know what you end up with. So Reb Nachman of Breslov Zakt Azai. Hanei Balayla, you're up at night, because in the middle of the day you can't think, because everyone is up and there's commotion. You have to be up at night so you could do his boidedus. Hamahalech baderech yichidi. You have to go alone in the woods. Yichidi means you go with the yachid, with Hashem, and you meditate, and you make him your best friend. Kaminig Breslev, you do his boidadus, and you sometimes go to the forests in the middle of the night, and you scream on top of your lungs, Tate Abo! Umefana liboy levatola, and you take your heart and you mevatel it. You mevatel it from being an egotistical, self-centered reality where you have to protect yourself, and you just allow it to melt. You just allow it to become part of God. Hareza mischayev benafsha. Head of heart. Hareza mischayev benafsha. In Sifrei Chkiri, in philosophy, there's a famous distinction between two types of realities. There's a reality called Efshari HaMetzias. There's a reality called Mechuyev HaMetzias. Efshari HaMetzias means possible existence. Mechuyev HaMetzias means necessary existence. The Rambam in the Moreh Nevuchim has this a lot. Many svarim of philosophy. What's the difference? Yes. What's the difference between a possible reality and a necessary reality? What's a possible reality? A possible reality means it's an efshari. It's a metzias that's efsher. Efsher azoi, and efsher fakert. It's possible this way. It's possible that way. So for example, this cup is mechuyev to be here, Rabbi Isai. What do you think? Huh? No. Look, nothing happened, right? Now I'm going to ask him. I'm mechuyev to be here. Now let's ask anything. Is there anything that's mechuyev to be anywhere? No. It happens to be here. It happens to be. It could have been here. It could have been there. But now let's take it a step deeper. Is there anything that's mechuyev to be? What? What's mechuyev? What could say about itself, I'm mechuyev to be? The cemeteries are filled with people who thought they were irreplaceable. What's mechuyev to be? What's mechuyev to be? What could say, I'm mechuyev to be, I'm mechuyev to be? I like being. Okay, das is mitzad the melech. But mitzad the am, yeah? Mitzad every person in the am, yeah? If I'm not around, what happens to Trump? Okay? And if he's not around, what happens to Trump? There's nothing in the world that's a mechuyev hametzias. Nothing. Nothing is necessary. Everything is possible. You're here. Make the best out of it. Is there even reality that's mechuyev hametzias? The beginning of understanding God is to understand this. Is there such a thing called necessary reality? Or not? Everything is just possible.
It is. In order for something to be, it has to be. In order for the cup to be a cup, it has to be.
So it's cause. Somebody caused it to be here. But the cause of the cup was also caused by a cause. Who was caused by a cause, who was caused by a cause. And that first mother also didn't have to be here. And then the cup wouldn't be here. That first tree didn't have to be here. Yes, all the apple trees come from the seed that came from a previous apple tree, that from previous, what's called an antecedent, ilah, back. But that itself was of Sharia Metzias. He says, now go back to the Mishnah. If you're up at night, when the world slows down, so you could connect to reality, and you go in the road alone, yichidi, with the yachid shaloylam, and you take your heart and you mevatel it to the yachid, hareza mischayev benafshay. You turn your soul into a mechuyev hametzias. Mischayev benafshay. The nefesh becomes a mechuyev dikemetzias. Because it's yesh amiti. Because you're yesh amiti. When the yesh becomes ayin, it becomes a yesh amiti. It doesn't really become ayin, it becomes a yesh amiti. That's why we always speak, what's bittul? Bittul is not self-destruction. Bittul actually means the realization of the self in the deepest sense, where it becomes one with the yesh. It has to go through the process of ayin, because the outer yesh resists this. The outer yesh says, if you challenge me, you're going to become nothing. And you have to comfort it and say, no. That's the yesh amiti. That's the yesh amiti. And it has to do even with a person himself. Sometimes the way you live is through protecting yourself. Just always protecting. Everything is protected. Cover-ups. And when you let go of all of that, mefana libur levatola, when you just let go of that, then actually the person can begin to align themselves and to experience a yesh amiti. That is more gadol than ma'aser shemayim v'aretz. That's the human miracle. God's miracle is me'ayin liyesh. Okay, apel of God. He's God. If I was God, I can also make yesh v'mayim. The real miracle is G'doy l'maisa tzadikim m'maisa shemayim v'aretz. Why? That's already the way back. Mishamaya goes down, but to take, that's the Nesa Acherin, is Gadol min Harishon. Because the first is a divine miracle, the second is a human miracle. And that's why the Baal HaTanya explains an interesting thing. How many psukim are there for the creation of the world? How many psukim describe the creation of the universe? The whole universe. Literally. You're going to cheat? 31 psukim. Lamed Aleph psukim, the beginning of Bereshis. You give me 31 minutes and I'll give you the world. 31 verses, I'll give you the world. How many psukim are dedicated for the building of the Mishkan, Rabbi Yisai? How many psukim for the building of the Mishkan? Truma, Tetzaveh, part of Kisisa, the whole Vayakel, the whole Pkudei, 6 Parshas, and then later other details, approximately 700 psukim. Fregechai, how large is the universe? No, the whole universe. You're dealing with infinity. At least from our perception, infinity. How big was the Mishkan, you know? The Mishkan.
The Mishkan was a detailed...
the Mishkan was detailed, and the universe is not detailed, right? Your brain is not detailed. Your brain is much more detailed than the Mishkan. 100 million neurons and 50 trillion cells. Much more detailed than the Mishkan. Look in the mirror. 150 feet in the length by 75 feet in the breadth, basically. It was a mobile shtibel. It was like one of these houses on Forshay that comes up and down every few days. We're like in a Mishkan there. That's what it was. So Fregechach, the universe which is infinite. And 5,000 years later, scientists haven't even scratched the surface of the meaning of a cell or an atom. 31 psukim. I'm done. And the Mishkan, a mobile shtibel, yes, intricate, intense, nuanced, beautiful, dazzling. Hundreds and hundreds of psukim. What's pshat? What's pshat? It's a mud netzushta. You know, they say that a Jew gave a silk material from Italy to a tailor to make him a suit. He made it in 3 weeks, he'll have a suit. 6 months later, he didn't have a suit. A year later, he has the suit. He says, I don't understand you, he says. Even the world, it took God 6 days. A suit takes you a year. He says, how do you compare? My suit doesn't get at God's world. Show it an accomplishment. Yeah. Now what's pshat? But now we understand pshat. I'll tell you, to put it in these words. For an infinite God to create a finite home for finite man is not that great of an achievement. After all, that's what an infinite God is capable of. But for a finite human being to create a home for an infinite God, that's a revolution. And that's the revolution of Yiddishkeit. G'doyle ma'aser tzadikim m'ma'aser shemayim v'aretz.
This class is brought to you by theyeshiva.net. Please help us continue the classes. Make even a small contribution at www.theyeshiva.net/donate.